Have you ever felt like your gut is screaming a truth that your mind just wasn't ready to accept? While mainstream spiritual guides might tiptoe around the messy realities of our bodies, we go and dive into the taboo territory where emotions meet digestion. Welcome to Unseen Light. I'm Astrid, and we are all about making the invisible visible, shining light on the spiritual connections that others might miss or avoid. Today's conversation will explore something that we all experience but rarely talk about: how our gut health deeply influences our emotional world. It's a connection that ancient wisdom often honored, but it often remains hidden from our modern understanding. Joining me today is Abie, whose business in London helped many people over the years reconnecting with their gut wisdom. Today she will offer a practical guidance that honors both the physical and metaphysical aspects of gut health, not as a medical treatment, but as a path to reconnect with self-awareness. On Unseen Light, we believe that true spirituality embraces all parts of human reality. So let's begin this journey together to bring awareness to something that remained hidden for far too long. Okay, Abby, so can you start by telling us something more about gut health and how somebody can actually tell that their gut health is being compromised?
So I think with gut health, massively, I always think fatigue levels, and obviously things like stomachache, needing the loo a lot, or being constipated. Anything where you've got a change in bowel habits is definitely something where you want to think, oh, is this to do with my gut health? But I also do just think general immunity, because literally it's something like 70% of your immune system is in your digestive tract. So if for some reason there's something going on with your digestion and it's becoming a long-term problem, that can also compromise your immunity. So I think that's also an important thing, but also fatigue. So anything like that. And obviously every time you eat, obviously having problems on any level with your stomach or bowels is definitely also something. So kind of standard things like that, really.
But it's really interesting that you are saying that people should go beyond of the like most obvious signs of problems with the gut health, that
Yeah.
obvious like something that you would expect to see. Then people should also look beyond that and look at tiredness levels and all sorts of other symptoms that they might not necessarily immediately connect with gut health, that things actually can be connected directly to gut health. So you said tiredness. What else it could be?
For example, I had a root canal quite a little while ago, and it becomes almost like my yellow canary. So basically, whenever I'm starting to feel run down or fatigued, literally I start to get a bit of an ache where this root canal is. And I'm convinced it's linked to where my gut health is at. Like, I'm absolutely convinced, because every time then when I start getting my gut health back on track again and start taking probiotics or whatever, then I don't get any of that sort of feeling of weirdness around the root canal. And anybody that knows anything about root canals will know that quite often, even if they're done amazingly, there'll still be some bacteria that's in there. And if your body hasn't got like a really good balance between different bacteria, good and bad, which is essentially gut health, but basically almost like bacterial health throughout your entire body, because we've got bacteria everywhere. It really isn't just our gut. Then, yeah, I think that's another kind of interesting, really random thing that I definitely linked into myself personally to do with where my gut health is. But again, it's almost like I think the conversation is bigger in a way than gut health, because it's about where is like the colony of bacteria within you, your entire being at. It's just that obviously you have a huge amount in the gut, but we also have it everywhere. It's on our skin, it's everywhere. So I think that's also the really interesting thing about thinking about your guts. Because, for example, that could be where some people might be more prone to skin infections or skin breakouts or anything like that. Because again, you've got this barrier, which is the skin, but then you've got bacteria that lives on the skin naturally and happily, but that can also get out of sync. Same thing as candida, so things like thrush with the mouth and other areas of the body. All of these things can link into where is your basically gut health at, but ultimately where is the ecology of bacteria at within you, if that makes sense.
I think especially for women that these things can be connected, because if you have the candida, then often they give you probiotics
Yeah.
to resolve it. So, and I think I've heard from my doctor, she actually mentioned that actually these things are connected. So if you like eat a lot of sugar, then your gut health is getting worse, and then ultimately other things are getting worse as well. So there seems to be also a connection between candida and gut health, from what I
Yeah.
heard.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, definitely.
Okay, so we start talking about this gut and mind connection axis. How can you explain us how this works? What is influencing him, and if it just goes one way, if just the mind is influencing the gut or the gut is influencing the mind?
So I can only really answer this on an intuitive level because obviously I'm not trained in any of this. I mean, obviously, again, it's kind of that thing where actually because everything is connected within the human body, so the gut and the brain, and then that will work either which way because they're both interconnected. So which one comes first or which is the most important? I don't really think it matters because I think they just work almost symbiotically together. Okay, I'll give you one example again. So I was once in a very, very stressful situation for 3 months and it was incredibly stressful. But for some reason, I decided to be really on it with my eating, with my gut health, with my exercise. And literally, the way that I managed to go through that situation, I should have been basically getting overly emotional like I always do. But I did not. I remained stable and grounded, which for somebody like me is a miracle in itself. And I'm 100% convinced it's because I went into a really stressful situation, but with a very calm, in control, internal, like digestive and immune like system type of way. And because of that, my emotions stayed balanced, calmed, and basically it kind of blew me away. The difference that it made being really good on my nutrition, gut health, exercise during that really stressful time period. And then obviously the thing is when we're in a really stressful situation, often we're more likely to then lose our exercise routine or healthy eating because stress takes everything off balance. And then I think it's when stress takes things off balance, well, that's also going to include your gut health balance. And therefore, I think it's a collection of all of these things together that also are impacting the mind with the gut, if that makes any sense, what I'm saying there.
Yeah, yeah, that makes perfect sense. And I think the stress, when you are in stress, usually the first way how you feel it is like, is that not in your stomach? It's just like when shock or something really
Yeah.
stressful, when you get bad news or something, like usually you feel it first, it hits in your stomach. So that actually reminds me, because that's exactly the place where the solar plexus is. So is there a connection between like a gut and solar plexus?
So I obviously on that intuitive level, I would definitely say yes, because where the solar plexus is actually right close to where all of the digestive system is. And I think anyway, when you look at the chakras and which organs are connected to which chakras, it's almost, I think, all of the digestive, including the pancreas, the stomach, the entire lot of the digestive system, not just the small intestine and the large intestine that are connected to the solar plexus. So I mean, 100%. And again, I think this is where when you have a really strong, solid gut health, or if you know somebody that's got really good digestive system, they usually are, not always, but they usually are, I think, a lot more stable.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Because it's almost like the core, the center of them is in harmony and is in balance. And that invariably kind of then spirals out to all the other organs and systems around the body and the human being, even outwards into the world, if that makes sense. And you often get people as well that are really anxious or something like that. They've usually always got gut problems. And
That's
you could
true.
say,
That's
oh, their
true. Yeah.
anxiety is because they have gut problems, or their gut problems is because of their anxiety. But I would say sometimes it's like, you know, when you see people and you know on an intuitive level, they're a certain color. I think as well, this is the thing with like the whole gut health, where somebody's gut health is at. If you want to start viewing everybody with like, oh, where's their gut health at and what sort of category are they falling into? And I think you'd find people that have really good gut health fall into the category of like stable, consistent, reliable, balanced. And then people that don't have so much good health, and I can say this because I am one naturally, they're naturally going to be more, let's say, in a positive way, versatile, flexible. They'll have that sort of more changeable, like kind of thing going on, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. And it was also my own experience that there was the moments in my life when I was like stressed, but not like stressed like necessarily like, oh, one thing was stressful and then it went away. But it was more like chronic stress. It was
Yeah.
stress that was kind of extending for days, sometimes even weeks or even months, and was like this constant state of stress. Then the first health problem that I had was always gut. Like
Yeah.
that was one of the first thing that started to create problems. So obviously for me also my famous gallbladder and stomach, but like that whole thing, just basically that whole area, just oh my god. So that was like always when I first like felt it with like a long term stress. And also I would say it was connected with moments when I felt that the qualities you would connect with solar plexus when somehow problematic. Like I did not feel control over the situation. I did not feel empowered. I didn't
Yeah.
feel the strong will to do something about the situation. What other emotions would you connect with, let's say, gut health?
Negative emotions, I think, definitely are the anxiety. I think flakiness goes in with a lot of bad gut health. I think, I mean, they're the major ones that I always think of. I know you mentioned anger, and I think,
I think that for me, anger was like definitely connected a lot with like stomach specifically, and the stomach acids, because
yeah,
that
that
makes
makes
sense. Like when you get
sense. Yeah,
angry, then the stomach acids, and
yeah, yeah,
I felt that if you like suppress your anger a lot
yeah.
because you're in a situation, maybe you don't want to express it as much, or you can't, or it's just not an option as much in your family or work environment, then I feel that if you're like suppressing the anger, it always like causes some form of a digestive problems, and especially if it's like a chronic suppression of anger that's kind of happening over a long time. I thought like that's one of the things that is kind of emotional situation because you're
Mhm.
suppressing anger. So that was kind of like the thing I was connecting with.
I think that's
So
so true. Yep,
if somebody actually is noticing these things, that oh
yep.
yeah, who is now listening to this podcast, and I'm like, and it's like, oh my god, I'm recognizing all of these, like Astrid, Abie, that's just me, all of it that you just mentioned. Oh yeah, suppressed anger and constant stress, girls, sign me up. So what are the things that, because like not everybody would be in position when they like completely can change their lifestyle,
Mm-mm.
but what are the things they should like pay attention to? What is something that they could do? We've been actually previously mentioning posture, and I found
Mm-hmm.
that's really interesting. We've been preparing for this episode. You mentioned posture, and I thought, oh wow, because that's not the first thing that people would think about when they think about gut health and improving gut health. The first thought, if you believe, oh, okay, I just need to eat some yogurt and get some probiotics. But you mentioned that this actually goes way beyond that, way more things you can do to improve your gut health. And surprisingly, one of them was posture. So can you tell us more about that?
So I think it leads in from the fact that we're all sitting down way more than what we would ever really should do. And again, say like if you do a lot of yoga, that's great because it starts stretching everything. And there's lots of postures where there's lots of stretching, but actually stretching of the stomach and then also compressing of the stomach. And you kind of doing it in a routine and it helps to like flush stagnant things through your bowels and all of that kind of thing. But yeah, so the thing is, if you're sitting down a lot and you crunched over, you've got to remember there's a lot of tension that's going off in the core, but
Yeah.
not in a good way, not in a way where you're building muscles, in a way where you're kind of cramping in, you're folding in.
Yeah,
So
that's
you've got to
true.
think
That's
it's
true.
kind of like it's trying to take it. If you're trying to take a deep breath of air, you've got to open up your lungs to expand. Well, the same thing with your stomach. If you want to open up the energy there, if you want to get things flowing, you do have to have the stomach, even physically, more open. So that means not
Yeah.
bent over and squashed. So I think this is the thing where posture is more important, particularly when you're sitting down, than what people might think. And also, I guess people, if they're into yoga, they'll know about a certain psoas muscle that kind of attaches from the diaphragm and it goes all the way into the pelvis. And again, this one's supposed to be chronically tense when people are sitting a lot or also when people are stressed, which is both things are very kind of modern lifestyle kind of thing. So again, being able to stretch, it's really stretch out your entire like abdomen, almost just lying on the floor, putting your arms all the way over your head and literally stretching and then taking deep breaths in and out. It won't just even help overall with the stomach and the gut health, but it's going to help with the pelvis because all of these things can be interrelated. So yeah, posture is one of these things. If you're sitting down loads, if you're driving loads, you know, and the older you get, the more you're probably going to find that that might play out on your stomach or digestive system if you have a weakness there. Because I think the thing with all of this as well, it's really important to always say, look, some people just never have a lesson in that area of their life. You know what I mean? They could do everything the worst way round and they'll never suffer in that area of their life. And I think the same with your body. You could be like, you could just do all the worst things health wise to one area of your body and it could always be fine forever and ever because you know what? Life's not just black and white. Your soul just doesn't have lessons or it isn't growing or isn't changing or you got a pass. There's so many reasons why it could be. So again, I think all of these things, they have to be in context with the individual. And I think that's where getting to know you and what is good for your gut health and what is good for you in general is really, really important. So I think trialing and error, testing different things to see what works for you also, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. One of the things that came to my mind, and that was like something that I was taught by a few of my teachers back in London, was that it's a good idea to stop breathing shallowly in your just here in your lungs, but actually breathe into your abdomen.
Mhm.
And that was recommended to me as a good way how to remove that stress from that abdomen area. And I think it's something that people can do if they are,
Yeah.
for example, in a stressful work, stressful situation, and they can feel how it's like that situation is at that moment impacting negatively their gut area. So
Yeah.
what I would recommend is that you can actually can get your hands and you can put them in your abdomen, and then you
Mhm.
breathe, and as you in your abdomen, and as you breathe in your abdomen, you should feel your hands going up and down and
Mhm.
up and down. I think that's something people can do to, let's say, avoid a stressful situation. But
Mhm.
obviously, big thing with gut health is going to be what people eat, what they should
Mm-mm.
not eat. In our group, there was a few questions about, for example, either things like medication or sugar, how these
Mhm.
things can impact your gut health.
Obviously, sugar's meant to be really bad for gut health because what it does is it starts feeding the bad bacteria, not the good bacteria. So this is why as well you have to be really careful when you get some yogurts that are probiotic because they might be probiotic, but they might have a really high content of sugar. And the
Oh
same as
yeah.
kombucha drinks. You know, some of these kombucha drinks, although kombucha is known to be really good for your gut health, some of it has got a load of sugar in it. So it kind of defeats the purpose. But yeah, sugar is definitely never supposed to be a good thing for gut health. And that can also breed that whole candida thing that we talked about earlier as well. So sugar, I think it is important to try and cut that down if you can, ideally. And what was the other one that you mentioned? Sorry, sugar and
Sometimes like things like antibiotics and medication, that's a
yeah, yeah,
bit
yeah.
can be sometimes a bit harder on the stomach.
So yeah, so antibiotics. Oh, I had a terrible situation with that like a few years ago, and it's honestly taken me nearly, I would honestly say like a year and a half, 2 years to get my gut health back. Absolutely terrible because obviously sometimes you're going to have to take antibiotics, and I'm not saying don't do that or against that, but it's just that there obviously will always be a cause and effect, and there'll be a consequence to wiping out all your bacteria with an antibiotic. And so it's really important that if you can to put yourself back in with the good bacteria with the probiotics. So that's definitely something that yeah, I think you have to be careful with that. And then obviously, yeah, probiotics I personally think are great. I'm on those at the moment because again, I took this is how long ago. I think if you've got a sensitive gut, what can happen? I took antibiotics about like I say, 2 years, 2.5 years ago, and it's only now just really starting to go back to normal again. Now, obviously, I have a predisposition. I've clearly got some lessons in this area of my body because it always causes problems. And like we were saying before, if for example, in astrology, the gut health or the gut is related to Virgo. So if you have strong Virgo placements, moon, sun, rising sign, or stellium of planets, yeah, or something really significant that's maybe harshly aspected to Virgo, I don't know, maybe you've got Mercury in Virgo and it's a hard aspect from Pluto or Saturn or something like this, all of these things might mean you're more prone to have problems with your gut. And I am a Virgo rising, so I have a big thing with my gut. And you've got Virgo placements as
Yes,
well.
I'm a full blown Virgo. I'm as Virgo as it gets, and I can tell you that we Virgos are basically in a constant state of frustration and anxiety throughout our life. All the Virgos I know had a severe digestive problem.
You're just more likely to have a bit more of a light shone on that part of your physical body.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Hey there, taking a quick moment to thank you for joining us on Unseen Light podcast, where we are making the invisible visible one conversation at a time. If you are enjoying our honest, straightforward approach to spiritual topics, I would love for you to follow us wherever you are getting your podcasts. And for those wanting to go deeper, check the notes for links to our certified online courses designed to help you navigate your spiritual journey with clarity and purpose. And now back to our conversation. Like, yeah, if you meet a Virgo, you can just ask them how their digestive problems are doing, and you're almost 100% going to be right on the money. Like, that's kind of what to expect from Virgos. But I thought it was actually a really good point what you said about the sugar in the probiotics, because I just realized, oh my God, actually, if I think about all the different brands that are advertising themselves as being like, let's say, yogurts or different supplements,
Mhm.
with probiotics, they actually are like a strawberry flavor or a
Yeah,
blueberry flavor, and they have a ton of sugar in them. I
yeah.
never, this never actually connected in my mind before you said it. And when you said it, I'm like, oh my God, yes, that's true.
And also, it is like all of these things, consumerism. Now, I am a consumer, so nothing against that. But the point is, and this will be a Virgo thing, and again, it plays into the digestive tract. So, the digestive tract, what it's really doing is it's choosing what to absorb and what to eliminate. And obviously, Virgo energy is choosing what to assimilate and what to expel, what to integrate and what to get rid of. And the same thing when you're choosing your probiotics or anything to do with gut health, discernment is key. All these brands are going to be throwing so much stuff at you. Oh, this is the best thing. This is the best thing. But if you look on the small print, if you do the Virgo thing of checking the fine detail, you'll probably be like, oh, that's actually, I mean, the number of times I've thought, oh, I really want that kombucha. And then I've looked and I'm like, there's so much sugar in that. That's mental. That's just not going to be doing what it needs to do. So I think discernment is key with Virgo energy, with gut health, and with your digestive tract, because that's what your digestive tract's doing anyway. It's using discernment to filter things in and out. So as what is that thing like, as below above, or
As
it's
as as above, so below as above.
yeah, same like internally, externally.
Yes.
Digestion is what it says on the tin, if you know what I mean. Internally and externally, it's discernment internally, but it's also discernment externally with what you're choosing to put in, whether that's good gut health, bad gut health, whatever it might be.
It's actually a great
So
connection that you're making, because if you think about it, the idea of the Virgo-ness, which is also idea of Virgos, can be connected with things like self-discipline, some form of like almost like Saturnian order type of an energies, even though Virgo is not ruled by Saturn, but they have similarities in their thinking. So if you think about it, that it makes sense, because you need to bring that a little bit Saturnian or Virgo like energy when you're eating. So you have that discipline. And Virgos are also a little bit like about asceticism, about
mm,
like minimizing things, not going
mm,
too much in an extreme.
mhm.
So it makes sense it will be connected with the good gut health, because
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
need to a little bit of asceticism, a little bit of like
yeah.
removing that excess when it comes to food, obviously not eating that too much sugar, not eating too much processed food, not too much chemicals. They cannot being able to like say no to that.
Yeah, like the
Say
purity
no
of
to these
Virgo.
temptations.
Yes.
That
Yeah, yeah.
definitely is a little bit of like a Virgo monk like energy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, like rather than a monk, I prefer doesn't sound so much fun. I
I
prefer
said
like the like
no, that's the whole
purity.
point of being a monk, that you don't
Yeah,
have fun.
well, that's
Ora et
fine.
labora. You pray.
But yeah, so I do think there is definitely that that's how you can look at gut health from another sort of angle as well. Maybe a more spiritual, sort of astrological tilt on it.
But obviously, one of the things that would be really beneficial for gut health would be fasting.
Yeah.
If you can tell us more about like the connection between fasting and a gut health, and how somebody can like do some easy fasting that would not be
Yeah,
too
yeah.
disruptive to their daily life.
So obviously, again, I'm saying this from personal experience more than because I'm trained in it at all, which I'm not. But I've tried so many different fasts. Well, obviously, probably the easiest one to do is that 5-2-1. So you know it's intermittent fasting. Sorry, that's probably the easiest one to do. So maybe you only choose to eat for 8 or 6 hours in concession out of a 24-hour period. And really, what this is doing then, it's allowing your, like we talked about, the immune system being your digestive system. It means if you're only going to eat for 6 to 8 hour window, you've then got the rest of the remaining 24 hours where the digestive system doesn't have to spend so much time processing food and can start to maybe regenerate the internal lining or all these other kind of things. And again, it's not going to put so much stress on any system within the digestive tract, which would also be that ecosystem of bacteria, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
that
I
makes
think
perfect sense.
fasting from that point of view is really, really powerful. Now, interestingly, I don't know exactly what it does in terms of gut health. I just know it's amazing for your digestive system, for your body in general, because it helps you basically channel and focus those energies elsewhere, so it's not on digestion. But I would also imagine, I know this, this is I've got no facts for this whatsoever. It's just the feeling, the better that you treat your body and the more that I think you are, let's use that Virgo energy again, you're trying to be discernment, you're simplifying stuff, you're purifying stuff, you're naturally bringing that energy into what you're doing internally. And I do truly believe that's going to make the colony of like gut health that you've got slightly shift more into that energy space of that purity, of that simplicity, of that kind of thing, rather than being intense or chaotic, or which I think is more of a sugary type energy when you've got that going on in your gut
Yeah,
health. And
the
then this
sugar
all links
rush.
back. Yeah, this all links back to what you were saying before about emotions. When you've got that different energy and different things that you're eating in your system, it's going to make you behave differently too, internally and externally, because again, above and below and inside out, back to front, all the rest of it is, I think it's all kind of connected in that way, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And I think that this is something that a lot of ancient cultures or in a folk traditions, you can find this way more
Yeah.
because a lot of actually religions, obviously Christianity, but other religions as well, have some form of a fasting that's included in their religious rites, one way or another. So obviously for Muslims, it would be Ramadan, but for Christians, which is, I would say, slightly more forgotten. But if you would just go 100 years back, there was the Lent, the Lent period.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
I think that a lot of I think this was based. There is no necessarily, or at least not in Christianity, there's not really like a spiritual or ideological base for that Lent. But I think it was more as a result of a folk wisdom, and they actually kind of, it makes sense at the time because the Lent period was usually at the end of a winter when, well, food was scarce. But
Mm.
it seems like the wisdom behind fasting was incorporated in a lot of religious or spiritual philosophies over the centuries. So it seems like that's something that we kind of forgot, or it simply was not something that's not simply suitable for consumeristic society
Mm.
to tell them, oh no, there's going to be 2 3 months of Lent, so you can't go to McDonald's because that's not Lent food. So uh, it seems like that maybe because of like culturally, because of our current like mindset is just, we kind of push that wisdom back to the background because it just wasn't ideologically sound. But I feel that there is also the connection between fasting and spirituality.
Mm-mm.
It seems to be preserved in a lot of like a witchcraft and occult orders when often they tell you to fast before rituals. So when you fast before rituals, so your body is cleaned, so your
Mm-mm.
body is not processing anything, and that energy is kind of cleansed, and your energies can be then focused towards the rituals. So it seems like the other cultures and ancient wisdom actually had that. It seems like we just forgot it recently as a modern society. Do you think we can do something to bring it back?
Well, I think number one, I totally agree with that. And I know in shamanic stuff, they'll often say before you do any really big vision or journeying or something like that, you're really good to fast again. Because I
Mm.
guess for similar reasons that you're describing with the witchcraft. So it's just like simplifies stuff. It's taking away distractions internally, externally. And I think it's getting you in a place where you can be easily focused without being influenced from so much internally or externally. So I think that that's really powerful. And also, just very quickly as well, when I've done fasting before, I've noticed things like my eyesight will improve temporarily. My dreams will go to a whole other level when I'm fasting, 100%. And when I used to fast a lot, I would naturally start to see colors around people, and it always happened when I was fasting and just after fasting. So I don't know what exactly it's doing, but all I know is it's definitely opening up. It's opening up something else, definitely. Maybe because it's all of the stuff that we're taking in creates a big smoke screen for a lot of other stuff that's going on. And then when we take away a lot of that distraction through the fasting, it then allows us to see something that previously was hidden by all this chaos that was around us. But yeah, I think there's definitely a place to bring that fasting in. But I suppose the hard bit with fasting in the modern world is probably the discipline, because there's so much distraction again, and there's so many things that are pulling you in other
Yes.
directions.
You need to bring that Saturnian Virgo energy of the discipline, like that needs to come with it. And I think obviously it's now harder than ever. But I'm finding it really fascinating because if you think about it, it was the shamanic cultures that were aware of the effects of fasting. And shamanic cultures, that means all around the world. We are going all the way back to proto-shamanic. So we talk about shamanic culture, not in specific part of the world, but all around the world actually have this knowledge. Then this was also part of the more occult knowledges of like occult orders from all the way to Renaissance and 1800s, let's say France, and then also it moves to it moves to just a folk wisdom in Europe, which is also tied again to Christianity and more of like a folk everyday people. So I find it fascinating that when it comes to the gut health and the fasting, that no matter the time and space, most cultures had some independently on each other, they came to the same conclusion that the fasting seems to be good. And I think that as a result, for centuries, people, well, not just because of they would fast voluntarily, but because of the agricultural situations, people never ate as much as we do now. Like, I think, yeah, like if you think about it, what time in history people ate as much as we do now? And especially as much sugar. I think we just eat as much, like more sugar than the humanity ever been eating in the long history of its existence. Obviously, that cannot be good. Do you think that the gut has some form of like, because we say gut feeling, right? When we have like an intuition, say, oh, I have a gut feeling. And the truth is that when I do have an intuition, I am feeling it around that area of like solar plexus and somewhere around my gut. And so I think the saying gut feeling is not just an accident. It seems like there is some form of a connection. So do you feel the gut is somehow connected to intuition? Does it have some sort of wisdom on its own?
I mean, I would say definitely yes. Where do you actually feel your consciousness in your body? Where's the main point in your body where you feel your consciousness? Because I've heard three different places people tell me. Just to have interest, where's yours?
Like when okay, so if I like when me where in my body me is me, or like where my consciousness is, or
So, where do you feel like the swirling vortex for you? Where is it in your body?
solar plexus
Yeah.
and heart, somewhere, some so heart and solar plexus.
And it's so interesting because people either say to me head, heart, or solar plexus. And so I think there's something in that.
So it seems like there is some form of like a connection between intuition and gut. Because I too, when I have an intuition, the stronger the intuition, the more I feel this like a pit in my gut feeling.
Yeah, yes, yeah. That's so there might so I do know there's supposed to be your gut is supposed to be your second brain. And I think this could be one of the reasons why it's almost like an antennae for like feeling things like that might be coming, or that intuition instinct thing that we're talking about. So how they themselves were communicating with the external environment and the external environment was communicating with them. I can almost see like it's like loads of tentacles come out of everybody's gut solar plexus area in the same way as the brain, and then that's kind of connecting to information far and wide in different timelines. And the more sensitive and in tune your connection is to those like threads outside of you, like different times, past lives, future lives, whatever it might be, and then your own system, how much in tune that is with being able to read those lines. I think this is what gives people instincts of things that are coming. And I think some people might get it when, let's say, a big event is about to happen to them. So some people get that intuition of something bad's going to come, something good's going to come. It almost feels to me like, okay, so if you imagine a what do you call it, like an hourglass shape. So you know how it's big at the top,
Yeah.
then it goes slim, and then it goes big. Put it on
Yeah.
its side. So the slim bit is just on the side, and there's a big bit here, the small
Yeah.
bit here, the big bit here, and there's a small line in between that connects the two. I feel like the bigger the event is going to be, so the more disruptive, happy or sad it could be to the other individual, the more likely it is to shoot strong energy through that small little connection and hit that person on the other side with their gut. So this is why I think people that are less in tune might be aware of that gut instinct when it's more big events coming, because there's
Yeah.
more energy on that opposite side that's trying to feed into their internal system to let them know. Whereas say people that are more in tune or have got more of those antennae going, they can be aware of more subtle things that are coming, or subtle
Yeah.
intuition, because of how it is. Does that make any sense?
No, that makes perfect sense. And I would even go as far as I would say that as a result, people who actually have more sensitive gut would be more connected intuitively because they can like discern more subtle changes in the gut because it's already very sensitive, and they tend to be more aware of it and more focused on it because they have problems with it. I think that because what I what I personally feel is that the intuition in many cases is connected to emotional state because it's astral world. That's also connected to emotions. So I think that for a lot of people, let's say, who are not accepting or not used to get their intuition, let's say, directly through third eye or visions, then getting them for emotions, it might hit first on the emotional level before it hits mental level or hits physical level. And then I see the gut as just being one of the centers that's very connected to emotion. So like the intuitions can actually hit there first before they start descending into mental and between
Absolutely.
into the physical level.
And then you know that thing about anxiety. So a big thing about people that have gut problems is usually anxiety also. I think where the anxiety also comes from is because if you've got this feeding system like the external that's then being picked up on the internal gut is almost reading the future or sensations or stuff like that. I think when people have got a really like sensitive gut, so they're actually picking up lots of stuff, maybe past, future, coming, but they haven't yet got the language to kind of understand what that is. I think it was able to understand what these sensations were and get them as maybe just something quite straightforward, like, oh, the house is going to sell quickly, or oh, yeah, that person's going to call you soon, or whatever it might be. When you're getting bombarded by all this sensitivity of things that are trying to feed you information from the past or the future, I think if you don't know how to read it and you don't know how to filter it, it naturally builds anxiety. And I think that's another big reason on an intuitive level why people that have lots of anxiety and gut problems, that's where it's coming from. They haven't yet fine-tuned to understand if some of this information they're getting is worthy of anxiety, or it's just information about the future or something coming or something like that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, perfect. I would say some maybe like some psychic training, energetical training, meditation training for somebody with sensitive gut would make a lot of sense. But for example, apart from let's say probiotics, which that's something that makes sense, what would be the other things that somebody can eat, avoiding sugar, avoiding junk food, probiotics? What else somebody can eat or get to help themselves to improve the gut health?
So my number one thing would always be aloe vera. Absolutely,
Okay,
aloe
yeah.
vera. I think it is amazing. But this is the other thing. It's like the probiotics. And in fact, it's like everything in life. It's not all born equal. Like not all aloe
Not
vera.
aloe is equal.
Yes, exactly that. Exactly that. So, for example, the aloe vera that I like to get is the way that you want to look for it is it needs to be, don't get it clear. It should almost be cloudy and it should almost have like some little bits in it, which is like the aloe vera itself. I think this is the best one. So you sometimes get these ones where it just looks like it's just like not clear liquid, but you can see through the liquid almost. There's no bits in it, or maybe it's maybe quite a dark color. I always think the best aloe vera is also really quite light as well. I mean, it's literally like how it would look if you were to just scrape it off the inside of the aloe vera and mush it up a bit. So it's that kind of like pale, really pale greeny color, but sort of whitey as well, and then with globules in. The other thing about that, I would always take it on an empty stomach first thing in the morning and just leave it for at least 20 minutes before I put anything else in my gut. I just think that's the best way to give it the chance to fully absorb. And it almost feels to me like it coats things and soothes things. So aloe vera juice is probably one of my favorites. Then obviously the probiotics, but you want the ones that you put in the fridge because I really don't understand probiotics that you don't have to put in the fridge because bacteria changes with the temperature. So how you could have good quality bacteria that can flex about with different temperatures, I'm really not sure. So I like the ones that you put in the fridge. Also with the gut health, I love stuff like green smoothies, green juices, and you can also obviously get the I know obviously we can't mention any products here, but you can get the ones that you just put in water and shake and you drink. And they've also, a lot of those do have probiotics in them as well. So I think stuff like that is amazing. Believe it or not, I think even doing oil pulling first thing in the morning, when you take coconut oil, put it in your mouth and you like swirl around with it for like 20 minutes before you spit it out. I think that helps like pull out bacteria in the gut, in the sort of mouth area. And remember, the digestive tract is massive. It's not just the stomach and the gut, it is also the mouth and oral health. It's all completely linked. So I think oil pulling in the morning or tongue scraping can also be really, really good. And these can be simple because I know things are really busy. So you kind of need to choose one or two things that you know that you can easily do. So those are the ones probably that I think of at the top of my head as my favorite in terms of what to take. But then obviously, like we talked about before, I really like stuff like bees pollen. I've never really read that it has anything to do with gut health, but I just think it's really helpful for it because there's loads of different like minerals in there, and also manuka honey. Strong quality manuka honey is like a natural, I think, probiotic in itself because it's full of loads of good bacteria. So having stuff like that as well. So I tend to like all of those kind of things. But my main thing always would be you have to just go with what feels right for you and what your body is craving. So my body might really crave aloe vera and think it's amazing, but of all of those things, your body might be more pulled to bees pollen. So I think you have to. The whole point about the gut is discernment, and discernment is an individual and unique thing. So you have to use discernment with what you're also deciding will or might not work for you. It's not copy paste, I don't think, with the gut.
I would like to also point out that with the aloe, it's also important to check for the sugar, because there is a lot of like aloe drinks that are heavily like have tons of sugar
Yeah,
in it.
yeah.
So it can be just the same thing like we talked
Mhm.
about with the probiotics.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to ask you, like, what do you think? Like, is there like a specific time that it can take people to restore their gut health? Is there a range, or is it something that's going to be completely individual?
I can't help but always think it's always individual because it depends on so many different factors. But I would probably say it's never going to be a super quick fix. I think it takes longer because you want to think about your gut health as a colony. So if you think about building a colony physically of like houses in a community, you're not going to just be able to do that overnight. That's not how that happens, because a colony usually relies on different parts within the colony to make it whole. So the fact there's that interconnection in different parts means that it's going to take time to set up. So I suppose I'm talking about a network. A network's always going to take time to set up, whether that's like when you're meeting people for your business or whatever. And I think with your gut health, because remember, gut health as well is like a range of different bacteria. It's not like just one or two, it's loads. So in order to get the strongest gut health and really make a difference on your gut health, I think it's going to take time. And also, I've noticed this: if I've had really bad gut health and then I've started taking probiotics, it's a bit painful process to begin with, as my gut's like, I suppose maybe, I don't know if this is true, but this is how it feels. It feels like the bad gut health is trying to fight the new good gut health I'm bringing in to basically not take it over. So it almost feels like I can feel a bit of an internal wall going off to begin with between my over bad bacteria and the new good bacteria I'm trying to put in. That I only notice if I'm really off piece, but some people might find that. And so again, that extends the time period it takes to stabilize gut health, because you've got to go through that push pull of the war while a different colony of bacteria literally takes over. And then once that colony of bacteria is taken over, then it's got to build its own like network almost of all the different strains that are collaborating and communicating together. So I think personally, I think it does take time. Like I said, when mine was really bad, it's taken 2 years. And I think that is excessive. But I think you've got to at least, they always say, if you're going to take a supplement, take it for at least 3 months before you know if it works. I think with gut health, you need to like double and triple that. So it might really take you 6 months to 9 months to really build a solid gut health, particularly if you're coming from a weak spot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Like, I'm so happy that you actually mentioned the fighting of like the bad bacteria, because that was something I also experienced, and not many people are talking about that. Your own imbalances, that being health or that being mental or emotional, your imbalances fight back when you're trying to remove them.
Mhm.
It, like, people would naturally assume that, oh, I'm just going to like make things better and it's going to just gradually disappear, and I think in many cases they're not expecting that fight back.
Yeah.
And it was my experience on all levels, that being mental, emotional, and physical, that your bad habits fight back when you're trying to remove them. And you need to somehow scrape for the courage and resistance and resilience to really push through with them. And I thought it was amazing how you mentioned that, basically make the comparison, like this basically is like a building a colony, which is, but yeah, that's 100% true. And I think that it's a good perspective how to look at it. It's basically like a long-term project, because
Mhm.
you're building this colony. And sometimes, well, the good guys are winning, but then you go to McDonald's and and
Yeah.
you just swayed the power into toward,
Yeah.
towards the evil forces.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
But man, Big Mac is sometimes so nice.
I can honestly truly say I really don't like McDonald's. I just like the chips I can just about get away with, but that's it. If I'm desperate,
I'm
and I
just
can't tell you the last time.
oh no, no, no! I was just joking. But that's the thing about the bad food; it's just so tempting. It's
Yeah.
actually good thing to ask you, Abby, what we could do to basically help ourselves to be more Virgo and resist the temptation of a caramel chai latte.
I'm really bad at resisting temptation. So I really am. Oh, that's a hard one.
What is it that is it meditation? Is it channeling your inner monk?
I really don't have that one. Mine's a really flaky answer. I almost feel like I'm a bit life-led. So actually, if it's becoming a bit easier for me to do it, then I'm actually doing it. If it's becoming a bit harder or a lot harder, then I'm not doing it. So this is really no
Yeah.
use because, yeah, so I don't know, you'd be better for this answer because I think you're really
Oh,
good with structure and discipline. You have to answer that question for me, Astrid. I feel this is
like,
your terrain.
let me bring in my own inner, very organized and a
Yes.
disciplined and extremely judgmental Virgo. Yeah, I really was just trying to romanticize the idea of the ascetic monks. And suddenly, from that point of perspective, suddenly the asceticism, the fact that I'm rejecting all of these temptations, suddenly it was fun. Suddenly it was exciting. Suddenly I saw purpose behind it. So one of the things that I would suggest is make it fun. Whatever concept romanticizing you need to do, just give yourself a purpose, because sometimes just saying, oh, well, I'm not going to eat this absolutely delicious looking cake that has strawberries and pistachios in it and a lot of cream, which is oddly specific thing to say. Yeah, that's a pain to reject such absolutely yummy looking cakes. Try to make it fun. It's not easy to make it fun, but try to make the pain fun. That's an advice of the year. I don't have a better one. If anybody from our listeners have a better way how to say no to these terrible temptations, let us know. Let us know in the comment section below. We would love to hear what you're about to say, because as you can see, we have run out of ideas and we are suggesting only very bad ones. So go ahead.
I
So, is
agree.
there something like, let's say, some form of like, well, we talked about some food, we talk about some breathing technique and postures, but is there some like specific, like a spiritual practice that you would recommend for gut health? Maybe grounding or meditation?
So probably what I would probably think of, and I used to do this quite a long time ago, and it sounds crazy, but more of a shamanic type of thing. So when you're in your meditation thing, go in and chat to your gut health. Literally chat to the
Okay.
bacteria. Like I've always liked that shamanic way of doing stuff where you can communicate to anything and get a message from anything depending what you're asking. So that would be my thing. And I would probably, because I think gut health is again that colony, that building, that structure, that solar plexus, it would probably be something to do with helping me get on board with something I was trying to create in physical reality and ask them to also be supportive of that. So if you want to go in that more spiritually type way, that would be what my way of working with gut health. So it wouldn't even be, I suppose, making it stronger or better. It would just be coming from a place of creativity with it. Like, look, hey guys, I want to create this. I want to experience this. I think it would be fun for both of us. We'll all enjoy it because of this, this, and this. I'd be a salesperson to my gut health. I'd be like, yeah, just basically, can you help me with that support, with that ideas, with that intuition, with that instinct, with all of that kind of thing? That's what I would do.
No, that makes perfect sense. Like, if you don't know, just ask your body, quite literally. I think that people just might not think about this as being an option because they might just feel embarrassed just to go into meditation. Because when you go to meditation, people like to ask for some like very deep topics, like the meaning of life to your spirit guides into heaven. The first idea that doesn't come to mind is let's talk to my gut bacteria. But actually, I would need to like overcome first wave of embarrassment doing that. But at the end of it, that's also the shamanic approach. They don't feel this embarrassment. They just go in. Everything is a living, breathing creature. Everything has a spirit. You can communicate with pretty much anything. So it's good that when you have a problem, just go and ask a question. So I think that's actually a really good idea and really good suggestion to just try to ask your gut health and ask what you specifically as a person, what is your journey and what you need to do for the colony.
Absolutely.
So, what is like the last thing? How you would sum it up? What is like the last thing you would like to tell our
Mm.
listeners about the gut health and gut mind connection?
I think again, just sort of my thing would be look, it's a creative portal that you can use both internally, externally. It can help you change your emotions, work with different emotions, help you create different things, help you be aware of different situations, give you instincts, give you intuition, give you power, or at the same point, if it's not going so well, it can be the opposite of all of those things. So I'd probably say just really paying attention to gut health and what it can do for you is super powerful. And then forgetting all that spiritual stuff on a very practical level, I think it's just so important because I do notice being really sensitive and tuned. It does make a difference to how much energy I have. It does make a difference to how better I sleep. It does make a difference to how easily I'm processing and getting all the nutrients out of the food that I need. It does make a difference to my immunity and how strong that I'm going. So I just think gut health is actually incredibly important. And my last thing, actually, on top of that, would just be also, forget gut health. It's your entire bacterial ecosystem that's within your entire being: skin, nails, hair, gut, toner, the whole entire lot. So I think it's also to realize, yeah, there's a big part in the gut, but that's because it's becoming quite in vogue like the past few years. But realistically, remember, bacteria is all over you, everywhere. So basically, building a healthy relationship with that and having better health habits that work best with that is, I think, helpful massively. There, the end.
Ah,
That's what I would
the
say.
end. Thank you. That was very, very informative. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your intuitive wisdom with us. I learned a lot. We talk about a lot of interesting topics. And now, if you can tell us where we can, somebody wants more of you, where they can find you. And I'm going to put the links in the comment section below. But if you can tell us where people can find you.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me.
Yay!
I always love chatting to you, Astrid. It's great. So thank you so, so much. And I always learn stuff also whenever I'm chatting with you. So thank you again. So you can just, I think the easiest thing is probably my Instagram one, Abigail Goes Psychic. That's the main one because then obviously I just have some clinics that I just run in London, health and beauty, because why not both?
For our listeners, we put all the links in the comment section below. This was our relaunched and rebranded podcast, Unseen Light. Let your unseen light shine, and I'm going to see you in 2 weeks with another interesting episode.